Kansas City Chiefs, you were just talking about, and the verticality that they've added to their offense. Trevor goes A here for the Kansas City Chiefs. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is out, but you've got Marquise Brown in as that deep threat to go with Xavier Worthy, their first-round pick, who they traded up to get. And then the whole offseason started with, hey, we've got Chris Jones, we have Travis Kelce back, locked in for multiple years, kept the gang together other than L'Jarius Sneed. He was the one guy. They ended up trading him away. It was a mid-round pick, third-round pick. And there was the one guy, like, you have to make your decisions where you can't invest long-term, and it's L'Jarius Sneed. So maybe the cornerback position, takes a hit. Certainly takes a hit for the Chiefs. However, it's not like, they've got Trent McDuffie. They have players. They've got the young players that they've developed the last couple of years. They have contingency at corner.
Yeah, but it's not like Trent McDuffie, he's not stepping into a bigger role now that L'Jarius Sneed is gone. Like, those two guys were two of their top corners last season. So, Trent, it's still a loss. It's like we were talking about with some of these other teams earlier. Like, they're going to need to replace L'Jarius Sneed, and it's not like Trent McDuffie is not the player replacing L'Jarius Sneed. It's going to be some other guys that have to step up into a bigger role on that defense. So I think they're definitely worse at that spot. They did a good job keeping Chris Jones around, keeping Travis Kelce around. I mean, Kelce wasn't going anywhere anyway, but Chris Jones could have left. They at least
kept Kelce from retirement.
Right. They at least kept one of those two superstar defensive players that they were potentially going to lose if they hadn't done anything. So that's a win. But the real work being done is what we just talked about, the receivers. Like, they bring in Marquise Brown, they bring in Xavier Worthy to upgrade what was a bad receiver core a year ago, and was rescued by the late play in particular of Rashee Rice, who himself now created question marks. I don't think you can penalize the Chiefs necessarily for Rashee Rice getting into street racing and allegedly punching somebody in a nightclub, but these are, however, issues that they have to contend with.
Well, I mean, if you listen to the anonymous scouts before the draft, you would anticipate
but that's not a this offseason problem.
Right,
that's your chickens are coming home to roost after last offseason.
Draft-wise, of course, Xavier Worthy is the biggest move, but Kingsley Suamataia coming in to compete at left tackle.
BYU.
You just
another in a long line of BYU tackles.
BYU expert over there.
In the NFL.
I think that's probably the most uncomfortable spot there. Wanye Morris is the projected starting left tackle, last year's third rounder.
They're another, what we said, Atlanta probably doesn't have CB2 on the roster. I would say Kansas City probably doesn't start the season with Wanye Morris.
I'm not a Wanye Morris guy. I mean, he was like a 15th percentile model guy, and last year he did grade at 55.6, and when it felt like the sky was falling for Kansas City, it did kind of coincide with his needing to step in at left tackle with Donovan Smith before the playoffs. Remember, Donovan Smith came back for the playoff run and provided solid left tackle play. So there are one of the big question marks.
There are some veteran left tackles available that would absolutely upgrade Wanye Morris. And this was, remember last year, like, they signed Jawan Taylor to this huge deal. They're like, he's going to play left tackle. We were, that doesn't sound like a great idea. And then later on in the offseason, they signed Donovan Smith. You're like, okay, that makes more sense. They could do that again. I mean, Donovan Smith, I think, is still himself available out in the free agent world. But there'll be, I would put some money down on the idea that they'll sign somebody.
It is one of those interesting things because you keep talking about counterfactuals. Supposedly the Chiefs were trying to trade up into the teens to get a guy like Amarius Mims before the Bengals picked him up. So clearly the Chiefs are thinking about left tackle. They're not feeling completely secure in Wanye. And the domino effect of if they had traded up for the tackle, they wouldn't have had Xavier Worthy, the deep threat. So right now they're sitting with two really good deep threats at receiver, but questions at left tackle to still solve. But like you said, there are solutions out there.
And I do think that both of those receivers can be more than just that designated deep threat. Like in potentially contrast to Jacksonville, like Gabe Davis doesn't seem like he can do much more than that. Brian Thomas Jr., I don't know if he can. Like, we'll find that out. But I have a higher degree of confidence that both of the receivers that the Chiefs assigned, who look similarly designated deep threat, one-trick pony, I think both those guys can be much more than that. And therefore, even if it turns out Vic Fangio and NFL defenses have simply changed the dynamic and you can't be that vertical designed offense anymore, I think the Chiefs are better equipped to pivot than Jacksonville is.